Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the CURT 2-inch trailer hitch receiver here on our 2024 Mazda CX-50. The CX-50 is Mazda's version of the Forester, so if you own a Subaru, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. This is a off-roady kind of sporty crossover vehicle that's meant to have fun out on the road, but also be able to take you out into those secluded areas so you can go on that camping trip or do all those other fun activities with your family. But with it being kind of sporty, there's a whole lot less room inside of our SUV, so we need some space to haul all of our equipment, and a roof rack can get you most of the way there, but it's not really going to be able to hold everything that you really want to carry out on your trip. So having a trailer hitch receiver with a 2-inch receiver tube opening is going to give you that extra space, whether that's with a cargo carrier or with a bike rack, or maybe you're just hauling around a smaller trailer behind your CX-50. Either way, it's going to help you get the job done so you can spend more time out having fun versus trying to figure out how I'm going to get all my stuff loaded up and to the campsite. Now, while we're talking about hauling cargo around, let's talk about our capacities. So with our trailer hitch here, we're going to have a 525-pound tongue weight capacity, which is the downward force onto the bottom of our receiver tube here. So that's going to be your bike racks and your cargo carriers and anything that you load onto them. Now that 525 pounds is pretty high when it comes to these smaller vehicles, so you'll definitely want to load it up and then kind of take a look at your suspension. You might need to add a little bit of suspension enhancement just to kind of make sure that you're not riding too much weight on the back here and it's really kind of pushing you down and forcing more weight on that rear axle versus the front. Now when it comes to towing a trailer, this is going to have a 3,500 pound gross towing weight capacity, but that doesn't mean that your vehicle has that same amount of capacity. So you'll definitely want to double check your owner's manual and figure out exactly what your vehicle can handle, so that way you're not overloading it and potentially damaging your vehicle. Now, there's a few other things to consider when it comes to adding in our accessories. So one of those being how much clearance we have with the ground. Now what we're going to do is measure up from the ground to the top of the inside edge of our receiver tube, and on this one we are right at 13 3/4, so that's pretty good. Now typically you want to see at least 12 inches minimum. If you're kind of below that 12-inch range, that's where you're probably going to need to start looking into some sort of rise adapter, so that way you can get your equipment a little bit higher so it's not scraping the ground anytime you're going up an incline or down a steep decline. Along with that, we're going to also need to have our 5/8 hitch pin and clip. Now this isn't going to come with your trailer hitch receiver. You will have to order this separately. I typically recommend going with a locking one because then once we have our pin and clip in place, no one's going to be taking off with our accessory, whether that's a ball mount, our cargo carrier, or our bike rack. These are all very expensive items, so we don't want that taking off when we're not near our vehicle. Typically it will come with whatever accessory you have. I really like finding anyone that's also going to be anti-rattle, so that way we're not hearing a bunch of noise in the back. Now if we are going to be hauling a trailer, you're typically going to be seeing these smaller S-style hooks when you're hauling trailers with this style of vehicle. With this has a really big tow loop in it, so we've got plenty of space. I don't see these ever kind of binding up at all. But if you are hauling something that has those larger clevis style pins, even that fits really well in here and it's not really binding up on anything, so I think we'd be good with either. But once again, if you have a heavier style safety chain, you probably also have a trailer that's probably going to weigh a little bit too much for this specific vehicle. So now one other measurement that I really like to do is for any kind of folding accessory. So your bike racks and cargo carriers that will fold up, we want to make sure that those aren't going to come into contact with our fascia when we go to fold them up. And the best way to figure that out is to measure from the center of your hitch pin hole out to the furthest part of your fascia. So when we do that, I'm getting right around 5 inches, maybe a little bit less, but what you can do is you can take that measurement and you can go to your accessory. You'll look for the hitch pin hole on that shank, and then you can measure to the closest part of that rack or cargo carrier whenever it's folded up. And if it is longer than 5 inches, then we know we're good to go. It's going to fold up and not touch the fascia. But if it's under that, then we might need to start looking into an adapter to have it kind of spaced out further if we know we're going to need to have it folded up. Now, as far as the installation goes, this is a very simple one to do. The biggest thing here is just having a torque wrench and some kind of tool to cut the fascia. There's a bumper support that's just plastic that's going to be right behind the fascia that you're going to have to trim out so that your receiver tube can sit there. And then having that torque wrench, that's something that most people don't typically have at home unless they're kind of somewhat of an avid mechanic. Those you can pick up at a hardware store, you can pick it up here at eTrailer, or you can typically just rent one at any kind of auto parts store, typically for free, so that way you're not adding on that additional cost. But like I said, this is a very simple one. You don't need a lift. You're not really pulling any extra stuff off. You could easily just do this right on the ground and be good to go. But if you don't have the time to do so, or you just don't have those tools, please feel free to use our dealer locator. You can enter in your zip code and find a shop near you to get it professionally installed. If you are planning on doing this yourself, then stick around and I'll walk you through the process. All right, to start off our install, we're gonna have a couple push pins that we're gonna need to pop out so we can get a little bit more movement out of our fascia here, because inside of here, there's a panel we're gonna remove for our hitch receiver tube to pop through, and to do so, there's a couple screws that are hidden behind this plastic. So we're gonna wanna take a small flathead screwdriver and we'll push that in and try to pry out these push pins. Now that we have a little bit more movement out of it, you can pull down a little bit on the fascia and you can see those two screws. We're gonna pop those out, and then this whole center cover here is gonna be able to come out. And then next, we're going to be drawing some lines here, because this is also, the support right here is gonna need to be trimmed out. So we'll cut along the lines that we have with this little trim cover here. That way we know it's gonna match right up and our hitch is gonna fit into place. And if you look on either side, there's also a push pin style connector right here. So we'll have to just kind of pry that out. And it looks like we also have some tabs up front here we're gonna need to pry down on to pull it out the rest of the way. So you can kind of see, it's a little hard just to really get in there, but there's a little gap right here, and that's what we're prying down on. There we go. Now, to make sure this lines up perfectly with the cut that's in our fascia, I'm going to use some painter's tape and just have that be my mark, so I know I can just cut straight across right here. Now with my multi-tool, I am going to just cut out this little piece of our plastic bumper support right here. And then any little burrs that you have on here, you can just come back with your razor blade and scrape off. So you got a nice clean line. Now we're gonna have some white tape on the outside of our frame rail that we're gonna need to scrape off. A lot of time I typically just use a flathead screwdriver, but there are razor blade tools that you can use as well to just kind of peel that off. And the main goal here is we want to have access to our weld nuts so that we can install our hitch. So there's two of them on each side. So I'm gonna get these scraped off real quick so we can get our hitch lifted up. This one actually is peeling nice. Now that I have that sticker off of each of our weld nuts, I'm just running one of the bolts all the way in and all the way back out, just to make sure that the threads are clear. Now typically if there's tape over it, it probably is gonna be clean, and you shouldn't have any kind of corrosion or debris that's in there, but it never hurts to check it now before you're trying to hold up that hitch and then also get it in at the same time. All right, now with an extra set of hands, we're gonna lift our hitch up into place. And we'll thread in our M12 hardware with our conical tooth washer with the teeth facing in towards the frame rail, so that way it bites into our hitch. Get this all lined up properly here. I think I need to come back just a bit. Nope, we need to go up a little bit more. So it looks like we're catching on our fascia on the receiving tube, because I'm not getting much of a lift here. There we go. And then once you get a couple of threads in, that should help hold up the hitch enough to where you can finish it off. All right, I'm getting my last bolt in now, and then I'm just gonna snug these up with my ratchet, and then we'll come back and torque these down as well. And to do so, I'm using a 3/4 inch socket. I am going with a short well. You could go with a long or deep well as well, but you kind of have the exhaust in the way here, so it might be a little tight if you are using a deep well. All right, so like I said, once we have it snugged, we'll come back and just torque it. Now the last thing to do is just reconnect those 2 push pins that are holding our rear fascia to that bumper beam support right here. So pop that in. Pop that in. Well, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the CURT 2-inch trailer hitch receiver here on our 2024 Mazda CX-50. My name's Kevin, and if you still have some questions about what's going to be the right trailer hitch for your CX-50, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.